So, Peter, hey, I'm excited about this because I've known you for such a long time, and I'm interested in the topic. So, uh, I'm just going to start off. I've written down some questions. I'm just going to start at the top, if that's okay.
Perfect.
So, question is, and I talk to people all the time, and I feel like this is such a great opportunity for you because most people are not happy with what's going on, but they don't really know why. I
Hmm.
mean, they can say it. They'll say, oh, some people are mean or people are rude, or they'll go party specific,
Hmm.
like, oh, those Democrats or those Republicans, but we're not getting anywhere. So I think this is really fascinating. So what is this conflict all about? What are the dividing lines, and why do you think we're in a second civil war?
Great question. So there are two different types of war. There are hot wars and cold wars. Hot wars are fought with violence, whether it be guns or rifles or bats or machetes, where you're committing violence or even genocide on the other side. And then there are cold wars, and cold wars are everything that are not hot. And what I think we're in right now, unlike our first civil war was definitely a hot civil war where 620,000 troops died and about 750,000 total Americans died in the first
Right.
civil war. We are right now in a war that's largely cold. Last year, there were about 32 deaths at riots or shootings or bombings last year, which is absolutely horrible. I haven't seen the tally for this year, but what's certainly happening right now is a cold civil war. And how that's being played out is largely at the social level. It is friend against friend, family member against family member, or employer employee against employee employer, something like that.
Yeah.
And how that looks like today is it looks like shaming, shunning, and expulsion. So the first thing is, we will get into a political argument with somebody, and tensions automatically ratchet. They go
Yep.
very, very quickly from you saying, "Well, yeah, I like to own guns," to the other person going, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're one of those people!" And all of a sudden, we create this whole identity around you. We then start. You might be shamed, like, "Oh, you're one of those people. I can't believe you think that." We question your morality, or we question your loyalty. So there's the shaming, kind of like that threatening of like, if you don't change your behavior, I'm not going to be friends with you anymore. And then it quickly can escalate into some version of shunning, to expel. Where we go, okay, well, I'm defriending you on social media, or I'm not inviting you to my house anymore, or I'm just not going to see you anymore. And
Right.
that's the kind of war that's being fought right now. It isn't between two big armies. I've called both the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and I've asked them each, do you want to annihilate the other party? Do you want the other party gone? And both parties have said, absolutely not. We want to beat them at the ballot box, but having at least two parties, and probably more, is in our national interest to have this kind of these war of ideas. So
Right.
no, we do not want the other party gone. And so this war is really being fought at the social level. It is a social civil war.
Yeah. I mean, well, I don't know if I told you this or not, but I was having dinner with my kids when they were back home, and of course, all the social discourse that's going on. And I asked both of my kids, do you think we live in a racist country? And they said yes. And so, literally, my kids are looking at me in a way that they've never looked at me before because of these social battle lines, these artificial social battle
Mhm.
lines that are out on TikTok and Twitter and where they learn these things. So it's very scary, Peter, because I mean, for the first time that I've seen, and I think you're hitting it right on the head there. First time I've seen in my life that children, and when I say children, I mean young adults, are rising up against their parents
Mm,
and calling them racists
mm,
or whatever,
mhm.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah,
Let me jump in and comment on that, because I think you're absolutely right. And what I hear you saying, Dan, is you are expressing pain, and
well, there's no question. There's no
that
question. I
is the
mean,
pain that almost all Americans are feeling right now to some degree. And that is the civil war that we're in, where we
yeah,
have children or parents or aunts, uncles, or friends where we feel we can't talk to them anymore, or we feel judged in some regard or disparaged. So, Dan, first of all, I'm really sorry.
well,
I am. I really am. That's part of the reason why I wrote this book is I heard all this pain happening from my friends. So let me talk just to that point right there.
Yeah.
I don't know whether your kids actually called you racist or
Although, no, they didn't call me a
you
racist.
got
They
it.
didn't call me a racist, but because they think the country's racist, and I'm a guy that was raised in the 60s and 70s, of course, to the young people now, I'm a boomer,
Right.
right?
Boomer. All right.
Right. And so my kids are respectful. They don't call, I mean, they would never call me a racist, but just the fact that they think our country's racist is so crazy
Mm,
that all these people are coming into the racist country to be successful.
mm.
So
Got it.
anyway, go ahead with
Let
what
me
you were
talk
going to
about
say. I
that.
apologize.
So it's incredibly taboo in the country to use racist slurs. So I can't even say the words because they're so awful, but there are racial slurs for nearly every ethnic identity. And if I even use them right now, you would say, Peter, I can't even talk to you because you use those words. It's very, very taboo to use those words.
Right.
But what's strange is, and by the way, that's bigotry. So
Right.
we clearly recognize that as bigotry. But for most of us, we think that bigotry is using racist slurs. That's not actually the definition of bigotry. It's the definition of bigotry is in my book or in the dictionary. And what you'll see is the definition of bigotry is to be intolerant against somebody else because of their beliefs or their opinions.
Correct.
So it's actually much broader
Yes.
than just racism.
Yeah.
So every single time when we label somebody else a boomer, a Republican, a Repubtard, a libtard, a magtard, or any of the other words that get thrown around, those acts of bigotry are every bit as bad and ugly as racist bigotry. So for some reason, we've understood that we should not be a bigot in a racial sense, but we haven't realized that political bigotry is equally as bad, is equally as toxic. So even a word that sounds as timid as boomer, as soon as you do that, you are othering somebody else.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, this person's other than me. They're different than me. So I used to believe that, we need to have more tolerance, and tolerance isn't it. So tolerance is basically to tolerate you, but you're
Right.
still someone else. To be intolerant is to go, well, I can't live with you. I can't stand you. And there's a lot of intolerance. So the goal is not tolerance. The goal is actually inclusion.
Right.
The goal is to say, hey, you are my father, my brother, my compatriot. I may not agree with you, but I respect who you are. And so rather than me putting you as other, rather than me tolerating you, we are walking together on this journey.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, it's really interesting because when you lay out that word, when you define bigotry as you did, it's ironic that the people that seem to point the fingers the most are the biggest bigots. Well, let me pull that back a minute. I'm interested in what you would say about this, and I agree with everything you said. But my belief is the people. When I say the people, I would say the Democrats or the Republicans. They're not pushing the bigotry. The media is pushing the bigotry. Mm-hmm. And so how do we, Peter, in this second Civil War, even if you and I are intelligent people, and say you're a Republican and I'm a Democrat, and say we want to work things out, but you've got the media mm-hmm. who, Trump called them, I don't know what he called them, but
enemy of the people.
There you go, whatever, something like that. Mm-hmm. And so, if you say that, then of course you're a racist. But anyway, you get my point. So what do you think about that? So you and I are different. Let's say we're different political lines, but then we keep hearing the same old thing every day about this is evil, that's evil, and that's racist, and this is,
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. So what we've forgotten as Americans is it is not Republican against Democrat. It is Republican and Democrat versus our collective problems. Yeah. So currently right now, the Civil War, what it's really about is about power. And it's about, I want my side to beat your side, annihilate your side at any cost so that we have power and we win. It really isn't about solving our problems. It's about winning. The
Right.
media, as you are accurately mentioning, is absolutely horrible. I stopped watching the news. I think it was in January or February this year, and I cannot tell you how much better I feel. And the reason being is it really is okay to go out and fight for your ideas. It's not only a responsibility, not only your right, but a responsibility.
Yes, it
Every
is.
American to go out and fight for what you believe in and to voice your opinion. Here's the distinction that I would plead, though, because you do have the First Amendment right to violate my request. I really think it's okay for you to go out and fight ideas, but we got to stop fighting each other. So
Yeah.
it's not okay in my book. This is just me. I have no more authority than my opinion will follow. I don't think it's okay to attack other Americans. And every single time that we label, slander, vilify, objectify another American, there is really only one winner, and that winner are our enemies. So there's no one happier from the last 5 to 12 years in our American politics than Russia, China, Iran, North Korea. No one could be happier to watch us fighting ourselves, not moving our country forward, so busy fighting ourselves that they're pretty much running the board in their respective areas. So when you attack another American, literally, not figuratively, our enemies are the ones who gain. They could be not happier to see us attacking one another.
Yeah. When I read that in your book, Peter, that really hit me. That really did hit me because I never thought about it that way before, and I'm convinced that most people haven't either. And I thought that was powerful because if we could get people to think that way, that we are harming our country and helping other countries by ridiculing or demeaning other people, I think that would be a huge step for us. So I love that. And I think, as a guy who's been around successful people my entire life, I think when you break things down to the first step issues, if you will, if you look at it from a granular perspective or, people that are, that study physics, they call it a first principle approach, right? Way over my head, but they talk about the first principle approach. And that's it is being nice to the people around you and realizing that when we're cutting down other people, we're actually helping our enemies. That would be a huge step, right?
We've heard this phrase that, we're tearing apart the social fabric, and we hear that. Yes, but we don't realize what it means. And what it means is all those little connections. One of our superpowers as a country is optimism. And right behind optimism is cooperation. And that we have found the ability to cooperate with people that we disagree with, for what's in the best interest of us as two people and us as a country. And so the more we keep tearing apart these familiar or friend or employer-employee relationships, the less likely we are to connect and actually hear each other out and cooperate. That is hurting our ability to cooperate to solve big problems.
I love that. I'm just writing that down. Am I interviewing you or are you interviewing? Because I'm writing this down right now. Optimism, and what was that other one?
Cooperation.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. That's why I always had to have a tutor, Peter. All right. So I love that. And I think that would be a great place to start. So who's causing this Second World War? Is it the Democrats or the Republicans? And what do you think are the dividing lines?
Yeah, great question. So the first Civil War was really clear cut. It was around federal versus state powers and about slavery. It was very, very clear cut. And if you ask most people right now, what is a Civil War over? They say the following: the other side is crazy. I can't live with them. They're terrible, they're awful, and a bunch of other slanders, but there really is no one clear dividing line. There's no one policy issue. And I lay it out in my book. When you poll Americans on policy issues, and both Pew and Gallup, which are very respected, completely apolitical polling agencies, they go out and poll people about gun control, minimum wage, immigration, and even something as divisive as abortion. What they find is when you ask about which side you're on, so for example, they ask, are you pro-gun or anti-gun? It's about 50-50. But then when you ask the question, do you think there should be universal background checks? Should they ban people from certain flights who have been marked? It's like 70% agreement.
Yes.
So when you ask people about tribes, we're very, very divided. When you ask people about issues, there's wide agreement.
Yep.
And that's why one of the subchapters of my book is this is the stupidest civil war. It's completely idiotic. Dan, you have done a ton of leadership training and consulting, management leadership and consulting. Can you imagine going into an organization and let's just say, I don't know, sales and customer service are absolutely at their throat. Can you imagine going into the meeting with the salespeople first and saying, tell me all the things that are bad about the customer service people? Oh, yeah, they're awful. Oh, they're terrible. They're absolutely the worst thing ever. Then you go over to the customer service department and say, can you tell me all the bad things about the salespeople, and then agreeing with them and getting them both frothy angry? Is that even in the remotest part of your brain what you would do? No. You would go in and affirm probably the facts. Okay, what's going on right now? Where are sales? Where are the problems? You would affirm our identity, that we all have the same goal, which is maximizing either sales or the certain revenue amount. And then you would go to each side and go, okay, listen, we know what our goal is. We know we both have some problems. What are you willing to do to make this better? And you would go to each side and have them go, here's what I will do. Here's what we're willing to give and take. And you get them focused on the positive outcome. Right. And to your point earlier about the media, all the media does is sit there and stoke the fire about how awful and terrible the other side is. That is no way to help resolve anything.
Yep. And I believe, I don't know what you believe, that I believe that both of the sides, both medias are not factual in their reporting. So it's all hyper stuff that's, most of it's not true, or there's partially true. And so they just what do they call it when they sensationalize it, is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. So here's how bad the media is. And the media is really bad. When I say media, by the way, let me define what that means. That includes social media. So Facebook and Twitters and Instagrams and all the rest of them. It includes radio. It includes television. It includes internet television. It includes podcasts. It includes magazines, newspapers, and any kind of online. So when I say media, it's broad. And now I'm going to make a couple of generalizations. And this is not true about every single one, but in general, this is true. Here is the devil's bargain that we made about 20 years ago. About 20 years ago, with the advent of the internet, more and more information was becoming free online. And magazines and newspapers and cable stations came to us, and I don't know if you remember this, and asked us to pay for it. They said, hey, buy a subscription. And we all said, why? I can get it for free online. And so we stopped paying for objective. So you might remember up until the mid 80s or early 1990s, the two most important characteristics in any news network was trust and first. We wanted the most trustworthy news station who gave us the news first. Now, that is not what we're looking for. We're looking for free, we're looking for immediate, and we're looking for sensational. Truth is no longer part of the value proposition that we as Americans, or most of us, are looking for anymore. So we said we're not going to pay for subscriptions. And so what magazines, newspapers, cable, all going to do is basically said we got to sell more advertising. How do we sell more advertising? Make it more and more sensational. What is the easiest way to make it sensational? It's tribalism. It's vilify another group, make us afraid of that other group. And what they discovered is both outrage and fear are actually addictive. So there are people unknowingly who get on every single day at 5 or 6:30. They click on the same channel to get their basic shoot up, their daily dose of outrage porn. They are addicted to it and they can't not have it. If they didn't have it, they would start getting kind of itchy and scratchy, like, God, isn't the guy on? I gotta watch my guy. They would feel like that. That actually is addictive. So the media literally, not figuratively, says the best way for us to sell more ads is more eyeballs. The best way to get more eyeballs is more fear and outrage by demonizing the other side. Not all the media, but a lot of the media is profiting by us going after one another. That's how bad much of the media.
I mean, I generally agree with what you say, but I want to push back on something, because I feel like what I heard you say is that truth is not value. But my belief is that each individual has their own truth, and they're looking for truth, and they think they have the truth. I mean, I don't, you said that people are looking for sensationalism or whatever the three things you said, but you said truth is not a part of that equation. I feel that it is. but they feel like, hypothetically, if I dial into Fox News every day because that's where I get my juice, that is truth to me.
Yes.
So, I mean, there are people, if you ask somebody what their truth is, right, that is their truth in the world. My truth, if I'm somebody that watches Fox News, maybe that I'm put in that Republican, pigeonhole, and what, Democrats are stupid, and that's my truth. And Pelosi is irresponsible, and she's a crook. That's my belief, right? And then, of course, if you watch CNN, then of course, well, anybody that watches Fox is a racist, right? So anyway, I agree. You tune into the station that gives you that juice that you're addicted to, but I believe that it's their truth, Peter. It's our truth. Okay. So I mean, I don't know, what does that say there? Because if there is no truth, people are just lost.
So the very first presentation you and I learned, 25 years ago, it was in that presentation was perception is reality. Yeah. Which is another way of articulating what you just said here, which is it's my truth. And yes, I still stand by what I said, is if you give people a choice of a station that confirms what they already believe,
yes,
a station that gives them facts that may or may not, they will choose the station that confirms what they already believe all day long, every day.
Yeah.
So there are right now internet channels, internet pages, books that will give them absolute factual information, which is more accurate than their current reality is, but they do not choose it. So I'm not saying that, believe me, I think facts are among the most important things in the world. I mean, all leadership, all problem solving, all creativity, all starts with a common agreement on what the facts are. You can't do anything unless you have that. So I think facts are very important, but it's not currently what the American populace values. What they value most is having somebody confirm what they believe is true. And belief and facts are independent of one another. They're two different things. So right now, I could believe completely with all my heart that there is an actual man who lives in the North Pole and who magically gives presents to everybody. Just because I believe that is true, and even it's true in my head, is it a fact? Nope.
Definitely not. Yeah.
Right now, Dan, I have some batteries in my hand. How many batteries do I have in my hand?
I don't know.
You don't know, but it is a fact that I've got 2 batteries, but you had no belief. So beliefs and facts are actually independent of one another. And what I do every day by the way, I have no monopoly on the truth. My reality is equally as warped and distorted as everybody else. The only thing I've got going for me is every morning I wake up and I go, half of what I believe is not true. Let me find at least one thing that is wrong. And the second thing is all of my knowledge and all of my beliefs are temporary pending new information. So I put everything in a tentative box until I get new information. And even that information is tentative. I really don't fall into the trap of believing what I think.
Well, that's powerful. Dangerous. Yeah. I mean, obviously you're light years ahead of many. One of the things that over the pandemic, I did a lot of research and a lot of reading, and one of the psychologists I listened to, he talked about that, is that most people actually believe their own thoughts. Just because you think it doesn't make it true. But anyway, I've got another question for you. I've got friends that just, they stop talking to other friends, as you well know. How should we talk to someone we disagree with politically?
That's a great question. And once again, that was one of the reasons why I wrote this book, is I too behaved very badly 5 and 6 years ago. And I realized what I was doing, and I wanted to find out why I was behaving the way I was behaving. Why was I shaming my friends? Why would I get outraged by their political opinions? Why would I attack them? I've done all these things. So I'm not in any way saying that I've got the magic answer and that I'm better than anybody, because I've lived it. So first, number one is don't have political conversations. Now, we've been taught that from a very, very early age, but I'm going to give you a different reason of why you shouldn't talk politics. Right. Listen, once again, this is a massive generalization. I make a lot of generalizations in my comments. If it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you. But by and large, 99% of the time when I've had a political conversation or I've seen a friend having a political conversation, it is not a conversation about deliberating over the issues. Hey, what do you think about that? Oh, I can learn from that. I can get some more information. Hey, let's problem solve. I'll be your idea partner. And today you and I will both educate each other and have more empathy, and together we'll come up with a better solution. That's not what's happening.
Right.
All we are doing is basically identifying our tribe. So I'm 52 years old. I've read 25 books a year. I've listened to thousands of hours of podcasts. I like to think that I am somehow civilized and evolved, that I am somehow better than my very, very ancient Neanderthal lizard brain. And the answer is I'm not. There are tons of what are called subconscious strategies that run us, and they're beneath the surface.
Yep.
Probably the most powerful one there is tribalism. So the reason we believe what we believe when it comes to politics and social issues is we believe to belong. We're a herd animal. And if you want to be a member of a herd, the most important rule is assimilate. So if you are in a herd and everyone's got stripes on, you have stripes on too, so that you are assimilated into that pack, whatever it might be.
Right.
But we have, kind of our visual tribal identifiers. It might be our glasses and our shirt, and maybe we might talk about where we went to college or what party we belong to, and we have these kind of visual ones. But
Right.
by and large, what we do oftentimes when we look at people, we start having we're very, very visual people, both men and women, and we have kind of a way of summing people up. Oh, look at that! They got a streak of purple in their hair. Okay. Yeah, I know.
Of course. Yeah.
American flag on their back. Oh, I think it's an eagle pin. Okay, I got them. It happens just like that. So we all say, oh, I'm not judgmental. Sure, you're not. There's not a person listening to this today or watching this today who has not walked into a cocktail party or walked into a networking meeting, looked around the room and said, okay, that's not my person. That might be my person. I might talk to them. And that is the representation of your tribalism.
Yeah.
You are looking for people that you belong with.
Yeah.
And that's what we believe gives us safety. So for us to go against our tribe, whatever the belief might be, because each tribe has kind of their own belief set, and they're almost all identical. And maybe they have some nuances, but you'll find most conservatives kind of focus around here, and most liberals kind of focus around here. They have kind of the same belief set. And if you were to be among your group and be pro-gun when everyone else is anti-gun, they will shame you. And you will very quickly assimilate, so you belong to that group. So
Right.
when we have a quote unquote political conversation, we're not really talking about politics. We're talking about the news du jour. So this last week, Simone Biles decided to quit in the middle of the Olympics. This for some reason was politicized.
It totally was. It totally was.
I don't have any idea why. We all of a sudden made this into a moral issue of good or bad or patriotic or unpatriotic or selfish or generous. Each side kind of had these different talking points, these little phrases that they used.
Yeah.
So if you were to ask me about that, hey, tell me about what you think about this, what you're looking for. Do I use the same talking points that you heard and you believe? And if I use the same talking points, it is the same thing of me having a big giant biker gang badge on me that says I'm in the same tribe you are. It just happens to happen verbally. So political conversations are not discussions about empathy or how to get to know each other. All we're doing is saying, are you on my side? And if you're not on my side, there is still the ancient part in our midbrain, the amygdala, that actually fires off and says this person's an enemy and I need to shame them, shun them, or get them out of my tribe. So when you have been shamed, or when you have shamed somebody else and said, I can't talk to that person, that is your ancient biology, your tribalism firing off. If you think that you've evolved beyond your tribalism, think again.
Very well said. Very well said. Wow, I think a lot of people are really going to enjoy this book. What's most fascinating to me is that you address something called patriotism. right? So what's interesting to me is, well, I'm going to go back for just a second, and then I'm going to come here. So you talked about, I've talked to many, many people, especially people that are older than me. So I'm 58 years old now, and I'm considered, if you talk to a 25-year-old, I'm old. But as you get older, as you well know, it just seems different. Now, the older people to me are the people in their 65s and 70s who used to be boomers to me. And so anyway, the point that I'm getting to is they're from the older generation. They don't have as many options in their head. So when I talk to my uncle, Paul, who's probably 78 years old, and every day he's pissed off. And every day he watches Fox News and every day he watches CNBC. I say, Paul, you know that a lot of that's not true, right? He goes, yeah, yeah. I said, Paul, but you continue to watch it, right? Yeah, yeah. So I'm like, Paul, I give him some suggestions. I send him some independent news sources that I watch. But like you said, he's addicted. He's addicted. So he keeps going back to make himself feel like shit. And so, it's just nothing more. It's the same thing from my perspective, Peter, as being in a bad relationship. You actually don't know what to do, and those nerves aren't fired. You're not getting that feeling from your brain into your body. And so it's a tough move. When the pandemic shook down, Jennifer and I, we also disconnected, and we don't watch any television. And it's been a good thing. I thought that I could actually control the news cycle, but I couldn't. So I let it go, and it's been great. So anyway, back to my question about patriotism. You wrote in the book, The Second Civil War, you wrote a chapter, which, excuse me, I haven't seen anybody else talk about, because I read through it and I was fascinated because I didn't think about it in that respect. And you wrote it and you talked about meditations on patriotism. Can you tell me some more about that?
Yeah. So thank you for asking that. It was a kind of a courageous chapter for me to write. And the reason being is I don't have any more of a right to talk about patriotism than anybody else. It's really only my opinion. So there is no definitive list of here's what makes a patriot, and if you're not it, you're bad. So
Sure.
as I'm sharing my thoughts on patriotism, they really are just my thoughts. So I found most descriptions about patriotism to be vague, lofty, and not particularly helpful. Here's one such definition.
Hey, can I interrupt you for a minute, Peter?
Yeah.
Because here's why I thought this chapter was so amazing. So right now, in the current state of affairs in our country, when you say that I'm a patriot, obviously they think you have a red hat on and you have a gun in your back pocket, right? And that's because of the news cycle. Perception is reality. That's what I see. So when I read your chapter, it actually gave me hope, because there was some actually tangible things that people could think about. Because if you read, just like you said, when people poll about what do they really think about defunding the police or things like that, most people are on the same place. And if people read your vows, I think most people, and one is only one over half, that's most, but I think it would be like 75% of the people would agree with those things.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
So anyway, go ahead.
Okay. Thanks, Dan, for that input. It's really, really helpful. All right. So here's a definition that I've read about patriotism. Patriotism, or national pride, is the feeling of love, devotion, and sense of attachment to a homeland and alliance with other citizens who share the same sentiment. I clearly understand what that means, but it doesn't really help me all that much in telling me what I should do or how I should act.
Right.
So when I think about patriotism, and once again, this is my definition, completely subjective, I think that patriotism really is about love. So love is three different things. It is a decision, it is a feeling, but more importantly, I think it's actions. Everyone who's a parent at some point in time, maybe subconsciously, but makes a decision going, I love my kid. I love my kid. And it's usually followed by some very, very powerful feelings, which are actually hardwired into us, that we go, I've got such affection for these people, for this young life, that I will do anything to protect them, even at the expense of my own. And that's my own life. It's another one place we're hardwired, where we'll sacrifice ourselves so our children survive. But more importantly to me, love is really about behaviors. So if I was a parent And I said, I love my kids. I got 2 kids. I love my kids. And I had this warm feeling toward my kids. But then I didn't back it up with any behaviors. I didn't spend time with them. I didn't take them to school. I wouldn't pay for their housing. I wouldn't pay for their education. I wouldn't pay for their meals. And I didn't have any of the actions that actually followed up this decision and this behavior. Dan, as an outside observer, would you say that I really love my kids?
No.
No. And I would agree with you. So for a lot of people, this is just my observation. They say they love our country. And to me, that really is about pride. Like they're just so proud of the country, this national entity. But
Right.
most people who I've talked to who say I love the country is they usually hate half the people in it. And that doesn't really make sense to me, because when you think about what the country really is, and sure, it's this amazing piece of land, got that. It is our institutions and our constitutions, and it is our troops. But the mass part of the country is the people in it. So how can we hate half the people in it and still love the country? That doesn't compute with me. Well, you might say, well, half the country isn't behaving very well. Well, I will tell you the first lesson of any kind of therapy you might go to on any relationship, and that's this: you can't change them. All you can do is change yourself. So until you are absolutely maxing out all of the self-reflection and all the things that you can do differently, you don't really get the right to criticize a whole lot else. And once again, I hope you're attacking ideas and not people.
I love that.
So, and next thing is, love, once again, is not really about the benefit to you. So, I love my kids. It gives me a warm feeling to say I love my kids, but really the benefit of my love is my kids. So to love something or to be patriotic to something is to incur a cost for their benefit, to incur a cost. So the fact that I love my kids means I'm going to spend about $350,000 per kid getting them from the time they were born, getting them through college. It means I spent thousands of hours, thankless hours, I will mind you, in raising my kids equally as bad as I was to them. So to love something else is really about a pledge to, I'm careful about using the word sacrifice, because the word sacrifice seems to imply death. That's all it means. Like you sacrifice as you die for the country, but it isn't all the other things. I really believe that every time you stop at a red light, that is incurring a cost. Every time you pick up trash, every time that you turn down the music so it doesn't bother your neighbors, you're incurring costs for people around you that don't really benefit you. So love and patriotism is not about the pride you get to feel. It's about a pledge and then actually following through on doing things for the benefit of others at a cost to you.
Yeah. So when I read that, that was a really mind opener for me, because I never thought about it in that respect. So, because when you said, when you stop at a red light, you're incurring a cost, right? Obviously, I had to think about that and say, well, what do you mean by that? And so, yeah, I mean, there's a cost in everything. So I think that's a real, obviously a literal way to put things that nobody's ever thought about,
Yeah.
no one's ever thought about that. So I think that's incredible.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's incredible. Again, when you back it down to the simplest steps, Peter, that would be a great step to have.
Yeah. So you and I have both done a tons of value training where you go, what are your values? How do you hope to behave? How do you hope to behave when you're out in the world? You go, well, I hope people call me responsible and kind and honest. And we've kind of done that self-assessment. I want to behave this way. I want to be valued this way. If you think about every single one of those is a cost that you pay for the benefit of others. So you're saying, well, I mean, responsibility is a cost I pay for somebody else. Yeah. It means you clean up your mess, that you accept your mistakes and you fix your side rather than blaming somebody else. That is a cost that you pay. Every time you were honest and basically go, okay, well, it's legal to do this thing, but is it right? No, it's not really right for me to lie to my customers. And I'm going to tell my customers the truth, which means they're going to grind me on price. Okay. I'm incurring a cost that's going to benefit somebody else. So values, which we are really important. Every single value is about how we benefit other people, not benefit ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So just a point of discussion, Peter, as I was listening to you explain that, I thought about you could, it's a cost, right? It's a cost, but it also could be an investment,
Mhm. Yeah.
even though those words are totally different.
Yeah.
I think they could be the same.
Yeah. So, Dan, when you are honest on a regular basis, what is the investment you're making? Which I agree with you. I'm just going to let
No,
you.
I get it. I get it. I'm not saying you're wrong,
No.
but it can be termed in both ways, depending on how you want to look at it.
Yeah. So when you are honest, for example, not only are you setting the example, but not only are you saying to the other party is that I am vested in being this relationship such
Yeah.
that I'm going to take this short-term cost, which means I have to lower my price or do some
Yeah.
extra work to make things right because I want a long-term investment.
Exactly.
I want you to trust in me that I will do the right thing by you and therefore will be around for the long time.
I get it. I get
Yes.
it. Yeah, I mean, if I'm having issues with my wife, Jennifer and I aren't getting along, and she says, "Hey, I don't like the way you're treating me, or I'm not feeling valued," and I make a change, that's a cost that I have to sacrifice some of my quote unquote selfishness
Right.
or whatever.
You can't
But
watch you can't watch the basketball game and you have to turn it off and have dinner with your wife instead. It's a cost.
but it's obviously an investment in
It's
my
an
future,
investment.
right? So yeah, I see it that way. Very interesting. So I'd love to hear. Give me another one of your. You have some vows, right?
Yep. I've got 11 vows. And so I'll read them both the headline and the body. And Dan, jump in. I've got very little feedback on these, and they really are. It's hard to write these. It really
It
is.
is. I went through them and I put some thought to it. So I've got some thoughts for you on
Good.
these things.
All right. So vow number one, I vow to vote. Voting is not only my right, but the most powerful instrument of our democracy. I will be informed and always vote supporting what is in the country's best interest rather than my own.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's powerful. Well, I mean, that's great for many reasons. As you know, there's many people out there that are complaining and moaning about everything. And you say, "Did you vote?" And they say, "No." So now here's what's interesting. I don't know if you've ever done any research on Socrates or not. But Socrates was jailed and he was stoned to death because he was caught up in, basically what's happening right now. He got shunned by the other side. So anyway, he has an interesting thought. Most of us don't know who Socrates is, but because we say his name, people respect it as one of the great thought leaders in the world. But it was interesting to me that he wrote a piece that he thought that democracy was a bunch of BS, quite frankly.
Mm.
And what he meant by that, Peter, which I found fascinating, is that he felt like most people aren't qualified to vote.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard this? Have you read it? Yeah.
People think that everyone should be allowed to vote.
Yeah. So what the analogy he used is, and I don't know the word he used because it was back in the times, but he had a word for how you captain a ship across the country. Said if you were going to hire a captain to get your goods across the country, who would you hire? Would you hire someone who knows the most about seaworthiness, or would you hire the most popular person? Right.
Right.
And so that's
not wrong.
So the people that go to the voting booths right now are not qualified to vote.
Right.
They don't understand what's going on. So you've got a bunch of idiots that are clicking the voting based on what TikTok says. So it's kind of a scary thing. I like it because I vow to vote. If you don't vote, you shouldn't be able to talk about the challenges that are going on. But I also feel like there should be a asterisk by that as well. I have vowed to vote only. I mean, I feel like people should go through an education before they get to vote. But of course, that's never going to happen. We're way past that. But I like that.
So Socrates is not wrong. Democracy is absolutely the worst form of government, except when compared to all the others.
That's right. That's exactly right.
It is incredibly messy, incredibly volatile. And we've all taken American history and we've all seen these passages in the past. We go, oh my God, that was horrible. Oh my God, that was terrible. And we kind of thought those are all behind us. No, we're still in all those gyrations that happen in democracies. It's a very, very messy, turbulent form of government, but it's still the best one we've got so far.
Yeah, I like it. All right, what else you have?
Number two, I vow to be inclusive. Unity is the very price and condition of our survival, and realizing such, I will support, advance, and value all Americans. That means in long short, we're going to stop othering anybody else and stop tolerating people. Everyone is a co-American, and we see them as such, which is really hard for us, by the way. We're not wired that way. We're wired
No.
to be in small tribes, about 100, 150 people. So it's hard for us to look at somebody we don't know in another state and really believe and trust that they are actually in the same contract that we are. And the same contract is that, I'm going to do my very, very best. And if I have fallen down, I'm unemployed or injured or ill, please help me. But know that I'm going to get on my feet as soon as I possibly can, contribute back to the same national contract, and help out where I can. And that's easier for us to do with people we know. And it's really hard for us to do with 330 million other people we don't know. But that is the contract that we all have got to get back to.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Third one, I vow to be nonviolent. Violence creates a vicious cycle of vengeance that's nearly impossible to end. Protest is an American value, but protest should always be peaceful. Violence may only be deployed as a means of defense and only as a last resort. We are incredibly vengeful, resentful people. And so when I say people, it means every human being. We're hardwired this way.
Yeah.
And so when we feel that someone has wronged us, we want revenge and we want a pound of flesh. So what every good government has, every good system does is they create systems of accountability. And the accountability is done by a third party. It has clear rules. It has people who have taken oaths to actually uphold those accountability systems. And it usually slows things down. So our legal system is expensive and painful. Everyone says so, but it also is the crown jewel of legal systems around the world. It's one of the many reasons we have the largest economy in the world, is that anybody who's wronged usually feels that justice will eventually be done. And yeah, I know of lots of stories where justice was not done, but on a whole, this system works so much better than being back in the gunslinging days of the Wild West.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Next, I vow to empathize. Before I criticize a fellow American, I will seek first to understand their experience, especially in moments of anxiety and strain. I will strive to be kind, generous, and considerate.
That's a good one. I love that. That would be great if we could all adopt that one.
I vow to compromise. I recognize that compromise is the price of cooperation. I will yield my own interests as necessary for the greater good. We've also lost that one. We think that fighting for what we believe in and not compromising is patriotism. That's not. So every single human being can only have one primary allegiance. So my primary allegiance is to my country. If your primary allegiance is to your party before the country, that is by definition unpatriotic. You can't have both. So I really implore upon everybody to have their first allegiance to the country more than their party.
Love it.
I vow to be truthful. Deceit is the ultimate threat to our union. I will actively curate what I believe based on facts and never deceive another for my own benefit.
Tough one.
It's a tough one. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess when I hear you say that, I mean, to be truthful is easy to understand, right? But where it gets tricky for me is that many people, including myself, obviously, you have certain truths that you believe are true. And so you can be truthful to those truths.
Yeah, I think as long as somebody is actually intending that, that's great. I think what is happening right now is most politicians and most media are not doing that. They're actually saying things they know are not true just for either making more money, getting more followers, getting more likes, getting more clicks. They're doing the opposite. So if you sincerely believe it's factual, hey, great. But as soon as you start spinning things just to make it be what people want to hear and further inflame people, that's where you have a problem with me.
Yeah, and I guess I'm pulling it back to the media side, because I feel like it's not the people. Like if I'm talking to somebody across the street and they don't like me, it's oftentimes just because of what they think about me, because of what the media says.
Mhm.
I guess that's what I'm saying. It's like, I can be totally on board and totally American, and I vow to be truthful. And I put a flag on my front porch, and someone across the street starts shooting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just, anyway, go ahead. I think it's the problem that I have is just, you're right, and I feel like it starts with the politicians and the media.
Mm-hmm.
That's
It does. But
the
also we can stop it too. I mean, at any moment you decide, every single person can stop watching the news. And I promise you, I stop watching the news, I'm still informed. In fact, the people who watch more news are usually have more misinformation. I'd much rather be ignorant than misinformed. There's no question about it. Because when you're ignorant, new information comes in, you're not sitting there fighting with your existing beliefs.
Correct.
Trying to see which is reconcile, which is right.
Yeah.
So I'd much rather be ignorant. And I promise you, people tell you, people just mention, hey, did you know this? And I go, oh, okay.
Yeah, you do.
And I can go read about that one thing. And I don't have to know about every single machination that happens day in and day out. It doesn't matter that much to my well-being. It actually corrupts my mind. So why? There's no benefit to it.
Yeah, I totally get it. I love it.
All right. I vow to contribute my share. I put the word might, but I'm going to go will. I will never fully agree with how our government spends money, but taxes sustain the institutions and infrastructure of our democracy. I will pay my fair share and advance my grievances to my representatives.
That's awesome. And that would put you in a position to actually do some research and put in the right representatives. I think that would be great.
Yeah. And I kind of like this one. And the reason was when I started thinking about it, I've looked at my own budget, my personal budget, and my business budget. And I went through and did this exercise about what percentage of the spending I didn't agree with. Like, I spent the money and I went through and go, this was waste. This was waste. It was about 20%. I'm up my personal level and on my businesses, the money that I chose to spend that I didn't agree with. So yes, you're not going to agree with what the federal government spends. I'm with you. I have my grievances too, but I dare you to look at your own budget and find, if you don't see it's at least 20% that you don't agree with the money that you spend. It's just part and parcel to being human and the nature of money.
I like that perspective. That's a good one.
I vow never to disparage. It is my right to criticize ideas, policies, and actions, but I will not mock, attack, demonize, smear, ridicule, or vilify another American. I will fight for my ideas, but I will not fall victim to hate.
That's awesome. I love that. I got nothing to say except for good stuff about that.
Thank you. I vow to put children first. Every child, which I will go up to age 18 or so, every child should have healthcare, education, childcare, nutrition, and access to developmental activities.
I agree with that.
I got a real soft spot for kids. And yeah, I know a lot of parents are screw ups and did not provide their kids what they should. I understand that. But I not only think it's a moral issue to make sure that kids have food in their stomachs and are free from violence, have education and healthcare. I think it's in our country's best interest.
I agree.
It costs $30,000 a year to imprison somebody. If we spent near a fraction of that much covering all, making sure that every child in America had these things, I'm guessing we'd more than reap the benefits on the backside. Plus, we'd have more educated, ready workers to help us cooperate better to solve problems. So I'm willing to pay more in taxes if the children are taken care of. And that's just me personally.
Yep. I like it. I like it.
I vow to do my duty, no matter what my role, whether parent, teacher, first responder, worker, student, or citizen. I will fulfill my obligations, keep my oaths, and never impede another's ability to do the same.
I love that. I think that's a great thing for everybody to do.
It happened
as a husband,
we saw our public officials being doxxed and threatened and harassed when they were just doing their jobs.
That's crazy. Yep.
And last, I vow to take responsibility. As a human, I am bound to make mistakes, but I will own my blunders, apologize, and make restitutions. I will not obscure, repudiate, or deflect my mistakes onto somebody else. Last, I'll say the central notion of patriotism is not pride, but vowing to contribute without expectation of return.
I like that. I like that. I mean, how many of those vows did you write, Peter? How many?
All of them.
How many?
I wrote all of them.
No, I mean, how many are there? Sorry.
Oh, there's 11. Sorry.
11. Yeah. I mean, I think those are tremendous. I think, I mean, your book is fantastic, but I like those vows because they were action oriented, and I read them and I thought I can do all 11 of those. I mean, they were realistic. I could definitely do it, and it would make me a happier person. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a lot of work. I was talking to my wife about this. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work to watch and judge what other people are doing. It's a lot of work to correct other people. It's a lot of work to be involved in other people's business rather than your own business. Yeah. And so that's something I've had to work on, quite frankly. And these are great. So way to go.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very true. Thank you. It was really nicely said. I really appreciate that.
But I do have one question for you. You know, you have a nice vocabulary, and I'd like to ask you and all the listeners, what does the word machination mean?
Machination. It's kind of like if you were watching a boxing match and you go, well, Muhammad Ali beat blank in the third with an uppercut. The machinations is all the jockeying, all the things that happened in the meantime, getting up to that final thing. So it's all the sparring and the ups and the downs. All the small trials and tribulations, and much of the news is kind of spilled out that way. AOC said this, and Mitch McConnell said this, but at the end of the day, the bill didn't pass. So I hear that headline, but I don't need to hear about all the infighting and the backstabbing, and whose fault it was and who's to blame. It doesn't really help me to hear all that.
Really well said. Makes sense to me. Awesome, Peter. Well, I'm excited about your book. I'm really excited about reading the whole thing. And I think that other people will get a lot of value out of it as well. So I want to thank you for your time today, man.
If you are more committed to national unity than partisanship, please check out my book, The Second Civil War, A Citizen's Guide to Healing Our Fractured Nation. My book will challenge you to improve your relationships with friends and family. Click the link in the description below.